Me too happy
This
about
is
that.
this is me being really sympathetic.
Honestly, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about my own personal health. I'm more worried about the entire situation as a whole.
Right. Well, Natasha, this is in the Corona lockdown. I'm meant to be getting. Excuse me. The whole point of this shot is to get the white horse in the background. You can't see that, but I've got Alton Barnes' white horse in the background. That's the whole point of the shot. I start the shot without that. What am I doing here? Right. Okay, Natasha. Good to see
Yep.
you. But we're in serious times here, and it's quite important what we're talking about. And you've had the unmentionable. You've got it or have it. Tell us what your experience is on this. You could also
Um,
reframe yourself. Oh, that's great.
okay, so I want to start by saying this is, I'm just like picturing the way that people are going to react to this. I want to start by saying that I did not get an official test, and I will explain why that is
This is
and
very
why
common. Keep hearing this.
this is the thing is that it's important to recognize, to really understand that you can be sick whether or not you have a test done, whether or not you get tested positive. In fact, even if you do get tested, I've heard that from a credible source that you can have 4 out of 5 false negatives. So I would do two things. One is if you are feeling symptoms, assume that you are sick. And two, if you are not feeling symptoms, assume that you could be sick and contagious.
Now, hold on here. This isn't the only virus in the world
Yeah.
that we have. People can
Yes.
get normal things like the flu or whatever, or some kind of
Right.
virus that causes you a pain in the head or something. But let's.
Why is this?
What exactly was your experience? What exactly happened to you? And I mean, when you say 5 negatives and then they give you a positive, and
I
this is
mean,
all a bit
this.
sort of haphazard, a bit confused here.
So 2 weeks ago, before I started feeling it, I was just someone else also telling people that it was fear mongering and that the virus was either not even real or it was just like the flu. And I was doing the math and calculating the mortality rate and then going to research statistics with other viruses and the flu and how many people die per year and saying people die every year from influenza, from all these other things, from car crashes, from all these other things, saying that it's no different from that statistically, so it's nothing to be afraid of. And now, a couple weeks later, I realize how wrong that is because now I have a better understanding of why it's a problem. And the reason it's a problem is that because it was designed to infect people, to be extremely contagious, to infect people with no symptoms. It was designed to have someone infected with the virus be feel and look completely healthy for as long as possible while also being contagious. So they're walking around in the world thinking nothing's wrong with them, having absolutely no reason to think there's anything wrong with them, while they're infecting everyone they come into contact with. And then all those people are getting infected, thinking they're fine for another 2 to 4 weeks, going out into the world and infecting everyone else that's infected. So the real problem, one of the biggest problems with this is how contagious it is. That's why it's an epidemic. The flu doesn't do that. The flu, you could be contagious about 2 days before showing symptoms. And normally people only give people the virus, the influenza virus, if they are showing symptoms. So the virus is influenza is passed through mucus. So if if you're coughing or sneezing, or you cough on your hand, or breathe on your hand, and you touch someone else and they touch their face, that's how they catch it. Or you touch something and
Yeah,
the
that's the main
they
thing for the masks, is to stop you touching your face. The actual masks don't actually stop it at all.
yeah, there's a couple things, and there's um different theories going around about the
Well,
masks.
they've got to be the right grade of mask for a start. And
I mean, first of all, one of the problems is that we are still learning about the virus and how it's contracted, and how I heard recently that it was airborne. So there's a lot of different stories going on.
I think
Um,
I think it's airborne within 2 meters, 6 feet.
that's possible, but the problem is we keep learning new information.
Well, the
So
whole point about this is for you to say that. So let's keep on trucking.
yeah, I don't want them to be doom and gloom. I want to tell people. So I want people to know, one, what my experience is, what they could potentially be dealing with, what I think is really going on, and what they can do about it. I don't want people to feel like they're helpless, um, and that everybody's going to die. 80 to 90% of people who get infected with this have mild symptoms. I have mild symptoms. Like right now, I'm having trouble breathing, but I'm considered having very mild symptoms. Um,
What do you mean by having trouble breathing? Is it breathlessness, or when you do breathe,
it
it just doesn't do anything?
it feels like someone sitting on your chest. Like I had asthma up until my 20s, and so I know what an asthma attack feels like. I know what bronchitis feels like, and that's not what it feels like. I mean, it kind of is and it isn't, because when you have an asthma attack or you have bronchitis, it's more like there's a lot of wheezing. So today's the first day that I'm really coughing. In fact, I wasn't really coughing. Yeah, I guess I woke up this morning pretty bad. Uh, but no, my lungs were worse. Energy wise, I was better. These symptoms are very strange. They're kind of like consistently the same kind of terrible for myself. And there's also this element of 1 minute you can feel like you're getting better, and then an hour later or 5 minutes later, you feel like you're getting worse. And
And
it goes up.
what does that actually feel like? Is it like you just lose energy, or what?
No, I think the least, I mean, the symptoms that the statistics for the symptoms are very accurate. So you can look them up. You do not have to have a fever. That is a common misconception. You do not have to have a fever. About, I think it's 80% of people, of cases testing positive, have a fever, but there's still like 20% of people that don't have a fever and they still have it. I have not had a fever at any point throughout this entire process. It feels wet.
Yet they were walking about testing people off planes with the thermometers and things.
Well, that's wrong. That's not. I mean, I understand that the thing is, the reason they're doing that. I'm sorry, that sounds like terrible, and there's probably like some doctor that's gonna be like, "You're an idiot." There's there's the reason to test for a fever is that if someone has a fever, then you know they most likely have it or something.
Yeah.
But if they don't have a fever, it doesn't mean they're not infected. And there's limited testing. They're only testing people. This is another reason why it's a problem. So there's the fact that you can give it to people without having any symptoms. Then there's the fact that we aren't testing everyone. So a lot of people are infected that don't think that they're infected. So they're infecting other people. And it's exponential. So for the last 2 weeks that I've been sick, because of the way that I got sick, which I really want to talk to because that is important. The reason, um, another thing is very clouded thinking and dizziness and having trouble thinking. I have a lot of trouble thinking. I will look at my phone and not know how to open my Facebook app. It's very frustrating. I don't know if other people are experiencing that, but I am experiencing that. Um, so what was I saying?
Well, that's inability to focus, and you don't have the energy to carry out the wish that you want to do that. It's like a lethargy.
At the beginning, I was very tired. I think even before I really started getting symptoms while I was incubating in my system, that's when I was more tired. Today, I have more energy and my lungs are worse. So my symptoms, because I'm hyper aware of my own health, because I'm trying to heal my own fibromyalgia and whatever else. So I'm hyper aware of my health. When I started, it started with I'm not. I think it started with a little bit of a sore throat, and it wasn't. It was nothing significant, but it was out of the ordinary for me. And so it felt like I had something coming on that was going to be really, really bad, but then it never came on and it went away. So the sore throat went away. So that's why it can be misleading. It's all, I'm sure it was designed to do this to make people.
It sounds like it was designed. So, what have you been told about the source of the disease?
Okay, so that's why it's important to talk about how I got it. Because of my fibromyalgia was really bad, and so I hadn't left the house in at least 6 weeks. The last time I had left the house was to get cat food. I went into the store, I bought it, I grabbed it, brought the cash, paid, and left. And this was before or very early on in the breakout in Wuhan. So I doubt that that was where I caught it. I barely touched anything. I didn't talk to anyone. I was in there for 5 minutes.
So,
And that
where are
was
you? Where are you, just for the purposes of this recording?
in Montreal, in the South Shore of Montreal.
Okay.
So what happened was I knew that I didn't catch it from anyone but this one source because I had been self-quarantined basically for at the very least 6 weeks. Okay. I had no contact with anyone else. That's why I think my situation is relatively unique. I had no contact with anyone else. There was no other way that I could have caught this except this one way. So there's a person that I live with. I don't want to tell the details because there are people in my hometown who are very aggressive and they want to find people to take their anger out in regards to this. So I'm trying to keep things as vague as possible. But so I have contact with only one person. That person had contact, the majority of contact that this person had was with two branches of people. One branch was someone who had just recently got off, meaning this person and their family just got off a plane from Asia, and this
What
other
do you call
branch.
Asia? In the UK, Asia is like India, but you're talking China.
Okay, so they were in Vietnam, and they transferred in Japan, and then they came here. And on their way there, they were in I think Toronto and somewhere else. And so on the whole trip, they were in like 5 different airports. And when they had left, it was around the time of the breakout. I'm Based on what I know now, I'm relatively sure that my theory is that they got it coming back from Vietnam. The other branch of people that was a possibility was this one person who lives with a bunch of roommates who are from China, who have family in China, and all this. So they were around a lot of Chinese people from China around the holidays. So maybe they went to China and came back. Maybe they had family come in. Who knows? Maybe they didn't. Maybe they did. Maybe they went to Chinatown and bought some stuff that was touched by a person from China around the holidays of their holidays. And I don't like putting it in a way that sounds racist, and that because that's one of the
Well,
problems
I
we're
think we're
having.
dealing with geographical locations, and
Geographical.
yeah.
That's where the virus had broken out. And so anyone in the vicinity had a higher, and that doesn't mean that they were Chinese descent. It means that they had been in China. Okay. that they had a higher probability of being infected. Um, so I got sick. The person that infected me had no symptoms, none at all, until very recently. So I've been sick for about 14 days. I've had symptoms. They only started feeling their symptoms recently.
And what were those symptoms?
Uh, mine, okay, so mine, I can only speak for myself, really. Mine are, so I started with a sore throat that came on for about 5 minutes or like a couple hours and then went away, maybe a day. And I also had a little bit of a cough. I was coughing up a little bit of phlegm, which was out of the ordinary, but it was very mild. It was very mild. These are things that you can easily explain away by, I didn't sleep enough last night, whatever. Um, but for me, I knew that something was wrong. I knew that this is not normal for me, for my physical health, for my situation. And so I was paying attention, plus the fact that I was watching what was going on in Wuhan. So I was aware that it could have been something more serious. Um, then, so around then was when I was really, 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 really tired. I wrote down all my symptoms, how they showed up on my video about this because I wanted to remember because it's kind of like blurry. The only really one symptom that was pretty consistent was my chest was a little bit tight, and it's a little bit of wheezing, but it's not significant. Like it's not the same thing as bronchitis. It's not the same thing as a flu. It's not the same thing as an asthma attack. It feels like there's a pressure on your chest, like on your lungs, that they can't expand, but it doesn't feel like wheezing. I'm not really coughing up phlegm anymore. I'm not, my nose was totally clear the entire time. It really does not feel like a normal flu. I did have body aches at some point, like normal flu body aches for
Right.
about a
Yeah.
maybe two.
Aches,
Very,
aches and pains.
yeah, but it was very significant. It was like I thought it was fine sitting down, and then I would get up and I'd be like, "Oh my God, everything hurts so bad." That felt like a flu. So every day there's like a progression of symptoms where they keep kind of changing. Yeah, so my symptoms were mild the entire time, no fever. And because I recognized that there was something wrong, I knew, no, a lot of people didn't believe me. A lot of people are in denial. A lot of people, including the ones that are infected, are in denial because they don't want to deal with the reality of this. A lot of people who aren't infected, who are going out into the world, who think that they won't get it. A lot of people think that the only people who are contagious are people showing symptoms or who have been tested positive. There's a lot of denial in how this is transmitted and the severity of it. And there's a big problem in the truther community, in the conspiracy community, in the UFO community, because a lot of people, including myself before, are in denial that this is a real epidemic. There's a lot of people who think that this is just a cover for the mass arrests, and that's not what's going on. I had an incident the other day with a police officer and shed a little bit of light on that. That told me that there is no way that they are having any mass arrests, and this is basically why. They have limited resources. Their focus right now is dealing on the very real epidemic that is going on. They're all scared of getting sick. They have families. They are just now still
Well, I
learning.
have to say, here we had a couple of police officers, and they're just busy chatting with each other, but they're working together. But they didn't have any masks or anything. I don't know what they were doing. They were attending some kind of an issue in a house, doing their normal job, but they weren't protected in any way. And I mean,
Our,
I moved to the other side of the road rather than be near them. Obviously, it wasn't going to walk straight past them. That would be, probably a criminal offence. But so it's this is okay. Continue. I mean, you look okay. You look okay, but obviously this tightness of chest and the whatever.
right. People keep saying, well, not everybody, but there are people who say, you don't look sick, therefore you can't be sick. That's not how it works. You can't feel what I feel right now. And you won't know someone's sick. Like, you can look at someone, you don't know if they're sick unless they're on the verge of death because they're suffering with pneumonia and they're gurgling the phlegm that's in their lungs because they are suffering and struggling to breathe. That's the only way you're going to be able to
Yeah.
see visibly that they're sick. So it's important to anticipate that everybody is potentially infected and therefore potentially contagious. And there's another problem with this, that people want to know what the conspiracy is because there is one, but it's not.
What is this conspiracy? I mean, there are a number of conspiracies and falsehoods going on. What's the ones you're talking about?
Um, so the conspiracy is not that the virus does not exist. The conspiracy is not that it's not an epidemic. The conspiracy is not that it's not serious. The conspiracy is not that people won't be dying from this. What I believe happened is that, if you have you heard of Event 201? So 4 months ago, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation had a summit, had an event called Event 201. You can look it up on YouTube and find all the videos. It's very out in the open, where they basically ran strategy games on what would happen in this exact scenario with this exact virus. So tell me they didn't have anything to do with it, right? So
Well, I've
I
never
think,
heard of the British government. I've never heard of, or don't like saying British government like that, but I've never heard of having dry runs and rehearsals with these kind of things. There's no precedents on that, certainly on 9/11 and 7/7 joke.
yeah, I think this has been in the works for a very long time. And that's all I can say on that. I think that the real situation is that all the things that we've been waiting to happen are happening now. The whole shit hitting the fan thing, that's what's happening. The whole economy crashing, that's what's happening. Everything that we were waiting for is happening. The video that I had sent you the other day basically outlines a series of events that were set up to take place. And this video was from 10 years ago. And all of the things that were predicted came true, except for the last two things, one of which was the pandemic that we're experiencing now, because we've experienced plenty of pandemics. That's the reason, one of the reasons why a lot of people aren't taking this very seriously. We had SARS, we had H1N1 and all this, and none of them took us out. This one is a problem. The way it's contagious is a problem.
In
The way
other
that
words, they've
people,
got it right this time.
they got it right this time. And the other thing is that we're not sure yet if people can be reinfected. Most of the time, you can't be reinfected by a
Yeah,
virus. Most of the time,
this is actually one of the key things. You can be reinfected. That's the whole point about this, from what I understand, is that you clear up. You may not have antibodies. That doesn't work.
yeah. So the problem with that is, most of the time when you catch a virus, your immune system figures it out, heals you, and then is ready for the next time, and you don't catch it again until the strain mutates, and then you can catch it again. With this, if we can be reinfected, what we're dealing with is the Spanish flu. So if you don't know what the Spanish flu is, look it up, because what happened was it went around the world and everything was kind of like a normal, I want to, normal, I'm loosely saying this, normal infection, normal pandemic. And then it went around again and killed a ridiculous number of people. And that's what a lot of people are worried about.
So it's the second run. It's the second round about September when the autumn starts coming back.
So is this about vaccines? Very possibly. But the vaccines maybe, maybe they'll be able to pull off forced vaccines, maybe they won't. Um, the whole mark of the beast thing, that's what looks like, that's what it looks like is going to be going on. The whole mark of the beast thing with this, Bill Gates is apparently trying to, and I'm not well researched on this topic yet, but it's important to bring up that apparently he's planning on dealing with this through some sort of technology or barcode tattoo or something like that.
Uh,
Some,
some kind of esoteric tracking.
yeah, and
In
that
Britain, in
combined.
Britain, we have a logo which is etched into our money, and that's meant to have an esoteric tracker, so that they know who's got the money and where it's going, and the ordinary cash is sort of like behaving almost like credit cards. They can track everything through that.
Right, right. So part of it is depopulation. Part of it is tracking everyone in the mark of the beast. Part of it is forced vaccinations for the same reasons.
Well, it's
So,
been described by certain commentators that the whole rollout of 5G, the way that's been pushed forward, the use of the extremely high gigahertz frequency of 5G causes severe damage to our immune system. So why are they producing this technology at a time when there's a pandemic? Surely they should not be rolling it out. But there's an incompatibility of logic there.
that's right. Unless your plan is sinister, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So the last thing in that sequence of predictions was World War III. So this pandemic would lead us into World War III. And so with all this, it's China's fault, China's fault, China's fault, China's fault.
Yeah, but it came from British labs and American labs.
This is the thing, but if the majority of the population is listening to the propaganda, and the authorities are just trying to prime the population to walk them into a war, it's exactly the same thing with 9/11 and everything else. This is the thing: problem, reaction, solution, right?
Yeah.
Problem, reaction, solution. Real problem. Stupid reaction. Proposed solution, which is exactly their agenda. So real problem is a real pandemic. So people are really going to suffer physically, emotionally, psychologically, financially. They're screwing up the financial system. They're leading us into communism. You want to call it socialism or communism or whatever you want to call it. They're leading us into total control in a way that we're going to beg for it. They're leading us into forced vaccinations in a way that we're going to beg for it. That's the point of this, so that we beg for the mark of the beast.
Well, in conclusion, what's your feeling? What's your bottom line? Where's this going?
I think, in conclusion, I need to leave you with something positive to give people some control over what's going on, because this is one thing just to tell people all the bad stuff that's going on, and then what?
Yeah, that feeds the fear. That's the main thing
Yeah.
that they.
And speaking of which, you know how they tell you, they're telling you everything's fine and you don't need masks and it'll be over in 5 minutes. That's because they don't want riots. They don't want chaos. And the first hint of a possible pandemic, people made runs in the store and bought all the toilet paper. After hockey games, people loot the stores and set cop cars on fire. They're afraid, like the police, certain authorities are afraid of chaos, and they're lying to you. They're lying about the severity of it because they don't want chaos. So what do we do about this? If it really is a pandemic, if there really is a virus, what do we do about it? Well, the whole stay-at-home thing is for a reason, because if you are out of your home anywhere, you can potentially catch the virus. And you look like you want to say something.
Well, in this country, the government wanted the herd instinct, the herd reaction, where you get everybody infected, so that they will then be able to be immune when it comes around again next winter. That's one of the things.
What are you're talking about the vaccine?
Yeah, so you get self immunity. In other words, you get everybody infected. They then generate the antibodies, and then we're ready for when it comes back in September or whatever time of the winter starts.
Absolute stupidity. That is absolute stupidity, and I will tell you why. People are saying that you should just infect everyone. That's stupidity. And if you ask a doctor, an epidemiologist, someone who studies epidemics, will explain to you the math and why that's stupid. If just in simple math, if you have a 1% mortality rate, this is a higher mortality rate, but let's just say for easy math, one out of 100 people dies, right? When you have, never mind how this infects tons of people, because and then like how that spreads.
Yeah.
If you have the bottom 9 people out of 100, the bottom 10 people, so one person dies, 9 people are critically ill that managed to live through it because they had urgent care. They were able to get help from a hospital. When you have way too many people sick at the same time, the system is way overrun, way overburdened. People cannot go to the hospital anymore. So in that case, all 10 people die. The person who was going to probably die anyways, and the 9 people who could have survived.
Yeah, that's what the government here has been trying to do, is to push this big jump, this massive curve in
They're
numbers.
trying
They're
to,
trying to sort of flatten it and even it out. That's one of the things they're trying
okay.
to do.
Yeah, flattening the curve means that people might eventually get sick, but the slower the infection rate means that more people have a chance to survive. More people who would potentially be critically ill and have to be admitted to a hospital have potential to receive that help. That's why. Also, I would suggest to people that they start preparing some sort of in-home infrastructure to survive being stuck at home long term. I don't know what's going on over there. Over
Well, I think
here,
it's just they've just brought out laws in this country in the last day or two. So the real lockdown's only started. I think there's one or two things you've got to get. You can get your business wound up or something by Friday, but that's it, really.
if you have the ability to grow food, grow food.
Well, most people,
If
and this is such a densely populated country, that's just not going to happen, and it's just not going to happen.
they were doing it in Wuhan, people were doing it in their own homes, in their condos. They were growing vegetables.
Good.
If there's anything that you can do it to prepare yourself to be basically off grid in your own home. Don't expect that, because we don't really know how this is going to go. In China, in Wuhan, they seem to have been sick for about 2 months and now are returning to work and everything's fine. However, we're not really sure how things are going to play out. And over here, there's a lot. Okay, that's what I forgot to tell you, and that's important. They were, in my opinion, purposely infecting people over here. They wanted people to be sick. The number, so the people that I got it from that got back from Asia, right? They didn't get any tests. They didn't get their fever checked. Nothing, nothing, nothing. They got off the plane, no tests. No one told them to self quarantine. They just got off and went doo 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 into the rest of the world and infected whoever else. They were on a plane with however many people fill a plane, basically sitting in an incubation room.
Yeah.
Everyone on that plane was infected. They all got off and did exactly the same thing, walked out into the world and infected everybody else. And I'm sure it wasn't only that flight.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And we had notice here. We had notice. We could have taken action when we started seeing this start in Wuhan. We didn't. We waited and waited and waited and waited till they knew that there would be an epidemic that they would have a hell of a time turning around.
How do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
I feel like I'm not surprised. I never did trust the government. I knew that there was an agenda to do something like this. I feel kind of like I've been preparing for this my whole life. I think that there's a lot of people who have a similar feeling like that, like they've been waiting for something and this is it. Um, a lot of people who relate to the whole light worker thing as well. A lot of
Yeah,
people in the truth community, they're like, we came here for a reason and this is kind of it, you know?
yeah,
Um, whatever you can do individually, this is the time to be personally, not only personally responsible for your own health and the health of everyone around you, but also whatever you can do to help the community. Because the way I see this potentially playing out, that's the reason why I said the whole long term thing, how in Wuhan it looks like they got sick, they're over it, moving on. Over here, it's looking more like they've set us up to be sick for, or to be sorry, to be quarantined for like a year and a half. Um, if not longer. So preparing for the long haul of this garbage.
yeah, yes,
And also, because of that, they're going to absolutely destroy the economy. And I pray that I'm wrong because I have a personal business. I have my own small business that I've been building for the past 3, 4
yeah.
years. And now that doesn't exist
Well,
anymore.
that seems to be the conclusion of certain observers that this is an economic weapon.
Yes,
And
yes.
as with all military strategy, you don't want to kill your enemy, you want to disable it, and it costs the enemy as much as possible, keeping and then paying attention to all that. But in conclusion, what's your final word?
I think this kind of a situation brings out the best and worst in people, and we all get to choose who we want to be. We get to choose which side of that we are bringing out into the world. And we can help. We can help figure out in our way how we can solve problems. We have economic problems. How can we solve problems? Instead of waiting for the government to help us, waiting for the heroes in the system, the exact people that put us in this situation in the first place, instead of waiting for them to fix it, why don't we take personal responsibility for once and figure it out? Maybe there's all these ideas that people have been considering for the last however many years, but never really fully implemented. Having an alternative currency, having a local currency, having trade of some sort, having these places, these libraries of things. All these ideas that people have contemplated, this is the perfect time to really implement them and see if they take off, because people are going to be open-minded to whatever. So do whatever you feel, the way that you feel that you can help and contribute, whatever you think your purpose is. Now's the time to get on that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Natasha, uh, from
Gloom now,
Montreal.
Miles? Was that super doom and gloom, Miles?
You were fantastic.
Okay. Thank you, Miles, for having me on. I appreciate it.
And thank you for giving that incisive personal experience. Maybe we'll get you back later to see how you're doing.
Sounds good.
And maybe we'll all start growing tomatoes in our greenhouses, i.e., our front room somewhere. Okay, well, thank you, and all the best. All the best for now.
You.